annual organizational meeting for the Intermediate District 287 School Board. My name is Crystal Brackey, and I will convene the meeting and preside until we have selection of the board chair for the January 2023 to December 2023 year. We will go through a number of routine annual items that we do at the beginning of every calendar year that help govern our operations as a district, ranging from our board officers to a number of finance and operations related items. So please bear with us as we go through these important items, and then we will convene our general meeting of the school board once we have run through this agenda. So first up will be the roll call and determination of quorum for our 2023 school board roster. So I will call the board members' name and district. Please say present if you are here. Ruthie Dallas from Brooklyn Center.
Present.
Kim Ross from Eden Prairie.
Present.
Michael Birdman from Edina is unable to be with us this evening. Shannon Andreessen from Hopkins.
Here.
Michelle Kuntz from Orono.
Here.
Heather Douglas from Osseo. Present. Crystal Brackey from Richfield. I am present. Renee Bowman. Bowman. Thank you. I apologize for the number of times I might get that wrong before it sinks in. Renee Bowman from Robbinsdale.
Present.
Ann Casey from St. Louis Park.
Present.
Sarah Johansson from Wayzata.
Present.
Heidi Marty from West Tonka.
Present.
We do have a quorum this evening. And we will move to the seating of our 3 new board members this year. So for our 3 new members, I invite you to stand if you are able and willing, and we will take the oath of office. I will start, and then you all can repeat after me. The only thing that will be different is where I leave the blank for you to state your own individual names. I,
Renee Bowman,
Heather Douglas. Fantastic. We worked through that beautifully. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully and justly perform
and that I will faithfully and justly perform
and discharge all the duties
and discharge all the duties
of the office and trust
of the office and trust
which I now assume
which I now assume
as a member of the Board of Intermediate School District 287
as a member of the Board of Intermediate School District 287
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and abilities.
Congratulations. Thank you and welcome to the board. We are excited to work with you this year. We move next to the nominating committee report. We had 3 board members comprise our nominating committee this year: Michelle Kuntz, Heidi Marty, and Michael Birdman. They will present the recommended slate for board officers, and then we will go through the process of electing each office one by one. I'm not sure which of the 2 of you would like to share.
I will present our committee's report and recommendation of officers. Nominating committee recommends the following slate of officers for the time frame of January 2023 through December 2023. For board chair, we nominate Crystal Brackey. Board vice chair, Ann Casey. Board clerk, Shannon Andreessen. And for board treasurer, Ruthie Dallas.
Thank you. Okay, as I said, we will go through the election process for each individual. We will entertain motions for board members to fill these seats. And as outlined, we will go through the call for nominations 3 times before we take action and vote as a board. So is there, keeping the nominating committee report in mind, a motion for election of board chair?
Move. I nominate Crystal Brackey for board chair of Intermediate District 287.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion for Crystal Brackey to serve as chair. Is there another nomination? Is there another nomination? Is there another nomination? Okay, we have a motion and a second for Crystal Brackey to serve as board chair. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair awkwardly votes aye. And I am excited to serve as chair for this year. And also just quick aside, welcome to our guests. We have to run through a couple of business items before we get to your section on the agenda. So just want to apologize for the things that we're doing right now while you're here with us. We move next to election of the board vice chair. Is there a nomination?
I will nominate Ann Casey for board vice chair.
Second.
All right. Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, we have a motion for Ann Casey to serve as vice chair. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and Ann Casey is elected vice chair. Next up is election of the board clerk. The nominating committee recommends Shannon Andreessen as board clerk. Is there a formal nomination?
I would like to nominate Shannon Andreessen for clerk.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Great. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay, we have a motion for Shannon Andreessen to serve as board clerk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and Shannon Andreessen is elected as board clerk. And finally, we have our election of board treasurer, with the nominating committee recommending that Ruthie Dallas serve as chair for this year. Is there a formal nomination?
I would like to nominate Ruthie Dallas as our treasurer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Are there any additional nominations? Any additional nominations? Any additional nominations? Okay, we have a motion and a second for Ruthie Dallas to serve as board treasurer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and Ruthie Dallas will serve as our treasurer. So we have our board officers set for the year. Thank you so much, everybody. We will move on to the slate of organizational business, starting with operations and our board meeting schedule for the year, which is included in the packet, but generally meetings the second and fourth Thursdays of every month, except for the months of April, July, August, and November, when the schedule is adjusted. Is there a motion to approve the meeting schedule for the year?
So move.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Shannon Andreessen. I think was that Sarah Johansson as a second. Any discussion?
I would just make a note that June 8th is commencement for Eden Prairie.
Yes, we run into that every year where there are typically
Yeah.
a couple of board members that will miss a meeting for conflicts such as that. So thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the motion is approved. Next is recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. On June 19th, 2003, the 287 board approved a motion to waive recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance, and we are recommending that we continue that this year, but a motion is necessary to continue waiving recitation of the pledge. Is there, thank you. We have a motion by Ruthie Dallas, second by Shannon Andreessen. Is there any discussion?
Can you just fill me in on how we got to that decision?
Well, because it was done in 2003, I personally cannot fill you in
Okay.
on that. I can speak to, that's the practice in my home district as well, where it's been a longstanding practice to just waive reading of the pledge at board meetings and in other school activities. I don't know if you have any additional context,
History, no.
looking
We're
around. to see
looking,
if anybody else
there
does.
is an attachment listed for
I don't have.
supporting information.
Yeah,
Thank you. We'll get that to you.
it doesn't really share anything more than what I said out loud already. The attachment being the Minnesota statute itself.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I can't provide more insight. Okay. Any other discussion? We do have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The chair votes aye, and the motion is approved. We will move into a number of finance designations. I'm going to ask an operational question here. Can we move 3.2A through 3.2H together as they are all designations and not resolutions? Or do we need to take them one by one? Anybody know?
I think it could have been a consent agenda perhaps.
We did it. Consent agenda. I'll take it.
On the consent
Yeah.
agenda.
Perhaps too late to move it to the consent agenda since that's
Yeah.
a different meeting agenda. Yes. Okay, that's what I thought, but I always want to check. If people are comfortable doing so, then we could entertain a motion. And again, to people watching, these are annual items that are not changes from previous years that include things like our financial institution and our official newspapers, designation of our auditing firm. So if someone is so willing, we could entertain a motion to approve items 3.2A through 3.2H.
So. You mean 4 point?
Yeah.
Two
They're
A?
for-
We're talking about the finance. one?
Oh, my agenda, I'm looking at a different version that has the threes. So yeah, that is, I'm gonna go down and there's different versions.
I'm looking.
4.21 through 4.28.
For two
Oh,
feet, not
what
the
about
others.
12?
Yeah, it goes to 12.
Right, 4.29 is a resolution that we need to take on,
Oh,
ourselves,
got
which
it.
is why I stopped it there.
Got it.
Sorry for the confusion.
I will make a motion to accept the items 4.21A through 4.28A
Thank you.
as one.
Appreciate it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the motion is approved. And I'm just trying to cross-reference two things here, so bear with me. Next up is item 4.2.9, which is authorization for the superintendent to sign contracts, which is a resolution, which is why we're going to take it separately. Is there a motion to waive the reading and approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the resolution is approved.
Chair Brecky, I believe I have to do a roll call.
Yes, you do. Please go ahead.
Shannon Andreessen votes aye. Michael Bergman is absent. Renee Bauman, sorry,
Aye.
overthinking it. Crystal Brackey,
Aye.
Ann Casey,
Aye.
Ruthie Dallas,
Aye.
Heather Douglas,
Aye.
Sarah Johansson,
Aye.
Michelle Coons,
Aye.
Heidi Marty,
Aye.
and Kim Ross.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hopefully that's my one, get a resolution mixed up with a non-resolution for the evening, but we'll wait and see. Next up is legal counsel appointment and a recommendation that Ann C. Becker and E. Janie Lang, is that how you pronounce your last name? Thank you. Serve as the district's legal counsel for the year. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hold on.
Other agenda?
I have three in front of me. Which one? The one that I think everybody else has, we're on item 4.2.10, which is legal counsel appointment.
Yes.
Okay,
So this one, it's the same as so. Jamie's not here anymore.
okay. All right, that's okay. So we are going to. Can somebody remind me who made the motion on that one?
It was me.
Thank you. Would you be willing to
But I
revise?
will revise the motion to.
Thank you.
Just Ann, is that what I heard?
Yes,
To Ann Becker.
great, thank you. All right. And who made the second? Are you willing to still support? Okay, great. So is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the legal counsel appointment is approved. The next item on the agenda is board compensation, and I thought this would be worth doing individually as well, just because it's important for us to discuss the fact that we are in fact setting our own compensation as board members for the year. The current board compensation has been in place since January of 2017. My understanding is prior to that, the board undertook a study to look at board member compensation across other intermediate and member districts and landed on the amount of $4,000 per year for individual board members with an additional $1,000 a year for the chair. The recommendation is that the rate remain the same this year. And I know I have personally shared with a few people, I think perhaps at the end of this year leading up to next year would be a good time to do that study again and just looking across member districts and other intermediates to determine if we're still at the right rate. So just wanted to provide that context. Is there a motion to approve the board compensation for 2023?
Second.
We have a motion by Heidi Marty and a second by Sarah Johansson. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'm wondering, is there already a plan in place to do an evaluation, or are you just recommending we do an evaluation?
Yeah, this is just me saying that I think that's something I would like to bring up several months from now, but it's not a formal action as part of this item.
Okay, and, oh, I forgot what my other question was. Oh, is it just comparisons with intermediates or with the districts that we come from?
No, what I just referenced was intermediates and member districts.
Both, okay, because we just did one for Osseo.
Yeah.
And found out that we were significantly under market and it was already much more than what we get here.
Yes.
So I just would emphasize that maybe we take action on that. Just because the work is so important.
When you say take action, do you mean
Like, do a study.
Yeah.
And then, like, don't just say, let's talk about it, but we're doing a study this summer about,
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would say.
Thank you. The motion on the table is to approve compensation for this year. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the motion passes. And then last, we have one final resolution, which is appointing the school district responsible authority for this calendar year. The recommendation is that we authorize Superintendent Marcy Dow to act as the identified official with authority, as well as Juanine Denson McGeaney, and that they have the official roles with the Minnesota Department of Education as needed. Is there a motion to waive the reading and approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. As this is a resolution, our clerk will poll the board.
Shannon Andreessen votes aye. Michael Birdman is absent. Renee Bowman.
Aye.
Crystal Brackey.
Aye.
Ann Casey.
Aye.
Ruthie Dallas.
Aye.
Heather Douglas.
Aye.
Sarah Johansson.
Aye.
Michelle Coons.
Aye.
Heidi Marty.
Aye.
Kim Ross.
Aye.
And the resolution passes.
Wonderful, thank you. The last item in this organizational meeting is just informational only, which is to please ensure that you review the board member roster that will be shared by Juanine, and that all of your contact information is up for date so that we have an accurate listing of all of our board members. So with that, we can move to adjourn the organizational meeting and convene our general board meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Michelle Coons and a second by Sarah Johansson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the organizational meeting is adjourned at 6:56 p.m. Welcome to democracy, all of our guests. I hope you enjoyed that brief look into probably a very important, but maybe not as personally interesting to you, business that we do as a board member. So with that, we are going to begin. So I officially call to order at 6:56 PM, the general meeting of the Intermediate District 287 School Board. At the start of every meeting, we read our district's mission statement. I'm going to read this evening and then create a schedule so that we make sure every board member has their time this year. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students. With that, I would like to just do a quick round of introductions for everybody here at the table. If you're willing to share your name and the district that you represent. Renee, can we start with you, please?
Great. My name is Renee Bowman and I represent Robbinsdale District 281.
I'm Heather Douglas and I am from District 279, Osseo Area Schools.
Kim Ross, Eden Prairie, District 272.
Shannon Andreessen representing Hopkins Public Schools.
I'm Crystal Brackey from Richfield Public Schools.
Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park.
Ruthie Dallas, representing Brooklyn Center Community Schools.
Michelle Combs representing Orono Public Schools.
Sarah Johansson, proudly representing Wayzata Public Schools.
I am Heidi Marty, representing West Tonka Public Schools.
And then we're also joined at the table by Superintendent Dowd, and we have so many staff and guests with us in the boardroom this evening. We're grateful to have you here and are excited to hear from you. Next on the agenda is approval of our general meeting agenda this evening. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Second.
We have a motion by Heather Douglas and a second by Kim Ross. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the agenda is approved. Next up is audience opportunity to speak. I do not believe we had anybody sign up to address the board this evening. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. And we will move next to approval of the consent agenda, which is a package of routine business items. We can remove an item for individual consideration if a board member makes a motion to do so. Not seeing any indication that somebody would like to do that, we could entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Shannon Andreessen and a second by Ruthie Dallas. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the consent agenda is approved. And I am so excited that we have arrived at the share the success and recognitions portion of the evening and the spotlight on our very special guest from the Ann Bremmer Education Center. So Principal Beckett, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Board Chair Brackey, Superintendent Dowd, members of the board, and welcome new members, or coming back members. Welcome to the board. It's great to be with you tonight. I'm Greg Beck, principal at Ann Bremmer Education Center, and I'm sure privileged here tonight to speak about a couple young men here who have really done remarkable things here at ABEC. And I do want to first talk about a few things. Then I'll bring Tejan and his family up. And then Devontae was not able to make it tonight. And we will share out a presentation that has information that I'll likely miss. And it also has a video of Devontae sharing some of his experiences. But first want to highlight really these two young men, the stories they'll share. You saw ABEC's data about a couple board meetings ago. They're outliers of the data. And that's just the honest truth. When we need to serve our students of color much better in this district, across Minnesota. So I do want to call that out as we bring these young people up there here to show their spotlights, that we really do not want them to be outliers anymore. And we want all our students to be successful. And that's why I'm excited for the strategic planning that Superintendent Dowd is leading, especially that student voice that comes in. I know our equity team met a couple weeks ago and they're starting to get some student voice going right at ABEC, and that's who we need to listen to. And that's really how we'll change and make sure all students are able to be as successful as Tejan and Devontae. So I appreciate the board doing that work with us together as well. Some highlights though at ABEC. because we have a lot of work to do and there's amazing things going on as well. And our work experience program is one of those I wanted to highlight. This year, we've gone from starting the year with, I believe, 0 paid employment opportunities, competitive employment opportunities for students. And now we have how many sites, Linton?
12 competitively employed during the school day for shifts that allow for them to get their credits done and also go out and get these wonderful work experiences.
So that's huge. As you can probably imagine, listening to student voice, that is one thing they said, and like, we're getting up there, we need jobs. How can you support us? And they really did the work. For instance, Devontae and Tyjon, they help keep those sites because as any industry, they need workers to show up every day. Sometimes some of their peers don't make it and they're the ones that cover those shifts. Another highlight I do want to share is this, the staff at Ann Bremmer Education Center. We've gone through lots of changes over the 4 years and they just keep showing up for students. I know the commitment and dedication they have to students is really remarkable. So I do want to call out our wonderful ABEC staff and what they do for students. We also have Dawn Peterson, assistant principal back here, Brian Burns, another assistant principal, just amazing running programs and just focusing on what's best for students. So I did want to introduce them. All right, now for the most important guest. Come on up, Tyjon. You want to bring your family and come up too if you want. No? All right. Come up. Well, Tyjon, I'll share a little about you first, and then you can share what you want, and they'll ask a couple questions. You can do it. And so Tyjon here has been, how long you been at 287? How long were you at NEC? Remember what grade you came over?
Fifth grade.
About fifth grade. So Tyjon's been in 287 since fifth grade. He's been at Ann Bremmer Education Center since ninth grade and just has been amazing growth and focus on his own personal development. And it's just been remarkable. He's, folks enjoy seeing in the hallway. He's does a custodian job. He's working at the Marriott. He's also focused on academics and has big goals for his life. So Tyjon, if you want to start by just sharing a couple goals about your life and maybe some of your favorite or toughest times at ABEC. Then the board will ask a couple questions.
I like working.
Go ahead.
I like working during school hours because I can get paid for going to school. So I like that.
Okay. Like that. So what would you have been able to, let's pretend there was jobs in ninth grade. How would that have gone? What's that?
That'd been better.
Been better just start working in ninth grade, started earlier. Okay, one feedback, start work earlier. So what's something that has been helpful to you at school or with your family? What's made you get to where you are today?
Miss Gwen.
People.
Yeah. People that be helping me.
So but are you okay if the board asks a few questions instead of me?
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Tyjon?
Thank you. And one thing that I just wanted to share, Tyjon, thank you so much for being here for the whole team. And I think especially because there are 10 of 11 of us here, if you can just raise your hand and then I'm going to call on folks to make sure that everybody has a chance to go, especially as we get into some of our special guests and big presentations this evening. So I think the first hand I saw was Heather Douglas. Go ahead.
Hi, could you just tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how it's helped with your school?
At the job.
Mhm.
It motivates me to go, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't really motivated to go to school as much, but now I am, you know,
What is it that you do for work?
at school.
Are you working at the school? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I clean the school.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then I work at the Marriott. I do banquet setup
that's great.
and I do catering with care. I do the dishwasher.
Wonderful. Questions?
Thank you. Go ahead, Shannon.
So is that the field you want to go into, hospitality and service industry?
Not sure yet. I don't even know what I wanna do.
That's okay. I don't know what I want to do.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hey, thanks so much for being here tonight and coming out in the cold and being patient with us. It's really great. Tell us something that you did in Bremer or even where you at North before that you did in school that you think helped you get ready for this next step, which was working at the school.
Got older.
Got a maturity? Yep, okay.
Ruthie, did I see you raise your hand? Go ahead.
Thank you for being here as well. I was just wondering about your aspirations. Along the way, who would you say helped you out? I know it was someone over here.
Miss
And-
Gwen,
Yeah, and so who else? Were there career counselors or any others that work with you along your journey to get to where you are? And do you see these jobs that you're doing now as stepping stones to something bigger or other, something different?
yeah, Miss Lindsay helped me, on the job. I don't really, what was the question?
What do you see as aspirations from here?
What are
Where
your
you
goals
know?
for after high school?
No, I'm not sure yet.
And then our other question was, anybody else that Gwen help you along the way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody.
Everybody. I have one final question for you, Tejan. You've mentioned Ms. Gwen a couple of times, and I know she's here. Can you just share what are some of the things that Ms. Gwen has done to really help you and support you along the way?
She's my favorite teacher. That's all I got to say.
Favorite.
She just my favorite.
Well, I'm glad we've got that on the microphone and that Ms. Gwen was here to hear
No
you
more
say that.
That was enough.
That was it. Mic drop.
Oh, yes. So,
Come on up.
part of the student spotlight, it's always stressful to come talk to a board, right? So, one of the, I want to say probably a condition was an award of some sort. So we also have a lab where students can design and, screen print t-shirts. So that was made in our lab, and, Tejan and Devontae will be getting the t-shirts. So.
That's our worker badge.
Very
Thank you,
well
guys.
done.
I don't want to answer questions for Tejan, but we'll add a little bit what he was saying very humbly. Is what he did is mom and partnership. I know Gwen and his staff really built that partnership with family, and that was so key because mom and family and whoever family is, each student's so important. I just wanted to call that out, and especially during the pandemic, realizing should have known all along, but I think sometimes in education, we get in our own little zone and we realize just how critical that partnership and true authentic communication and belief in students. That's really what Tejan has as a group of staff, even though we're not perfect. We sometimes know what we're doing, sometimes don't, but we kept believing in Tejan and these students, and they do the work to get where they need to go. So, yes, he did. So, well, I appreciate your time on the student spotlight, and good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you so much, all of you. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening, everyone. Okay, we are going to move to our superintendent's report. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Dowd to introduce our legislative update this evening.
Thank you, Chair Brackey. We have Valerie Hosland come on up. She is the Director of Government Affairs from Ewald Consulting.
She is a longtime friend of intermediates and District 287 as she lobbies and supports all of the work at the legislation to get us the money, right? Pass it off to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Superintendent Dowd. Nice to be here tonight and welcome to the board members. Just kind of real quickly, I'm going to start by giving you a little overview of what's been happening at the legislature since the session began on January 3rd. And then, some updates on what we know about the governor's budget recommendations and what I've been working on for the intermediates. So the legislative session began in early January. I'm happy to say everything is operating fully in person in both bodies. All committee hearings are done in person. The offices are completely open. You can walk around the facilities and interact and go to members' offices without being escorted in. I'm thrilled to be able to do my job the way I know how to do it, which was in person. It makes it a lot easier to build those important relationships. As you know, the election brought a DFL trifecta in the governor's office and the legislature. Session began, and I would say the pace feels a lot more furious than it normally does. I think the agendas by the majorities in the governor's office are really, really big. They first have to tackle the state budget, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but they're also taking on some big issues right away early in session. Bills that are advancing regarding hot button issues, but also issues related to labor like paid family leave. Those are all kind of getting moving fairly quickly in the beginning weeks of the legislative session. The budget forecast also brought really good news after budget deficits for a really long time. Even last year, we had a significant budget surplus. I thought that was a lot. The news in November showed we had a $17.6 billion budget surplus. I would note, however, of that $17.6 billion, $12 billion is considered one time. So it's huge, but it's not ongoing funding. So that will be a big consideration that the legislature and the governor make when deciding the budget. There will be a February forecast that comes out in early March, and that will be the budget then that the legislature and the governor really look to plan the budget. Recent updates from MMB do show that more money is coming in than anticipated, so I would expect there to be an even larger surplus announced in March. I mentioned a little bit about the big picture ideas on the big picture bills that are moving forward, but in E12, there are a couple bills that have gotten a lot of attention in the first few weeks of session that have advanced both the House and Senate. The first one is universal meals. Expect that bill to be moved separately as a standalone bill and pass in the legislature in the coming weeks. It's passed in both the House and Senate. And don't worry, the governor's office and the Department of Ed and all of us lobbyists are very well aware of the impact that universal meals might have on free and reduced price lunch applications. Legislators are working on that as well as the governor's office and the Department of Ed. So hopefully we'll see a solution proposed soon by the department or the governor. And then another bill that's gotten a lot of attention is a period poverty. It's called period poverty bill, and it's to place feminine hygiene products in bathrooms. It's gotten a little bit of news over the last couple of weeks. That's also advancing, but I don't believe that will be passed as a standalone bill. And then other topics that we've heard from both the House and the Senate and the governor that things like the special ed cross subsidy and the formula are top priorities. We still don't have a lot of info yet on what the legislature might be thinking, because the governor is the first to come out of out to bat with the budget recommendations, which he kind of trickled some information out last week, but the full budget recommendations were released yesterday. I think the items of interest to all of you, he's proposing a 4% formula increase next year and a 2% formula increase the following year, and also tying that formula to inflation. The governor has noted several times, he's said it I was at an event where I've heard him say it, he said it at AMSD, tying the formula to inflation is a top priority for the governor this year. The governor also is proposing to reduce the special ed cross subsidy by 50% and the EL cross subsidy by 25%. Universal meals And then there's a whole host of some other things. I would also just note, it hasn't got a lot of attention, but he does propose to allow school boards to renew a referendum by board vote. You get one time to renew it, is how I understand it. And I'm happy to say the governor has a couple of priorities that the intermediates have been working on in his recommendations. The first one is continuation of the funding that the intermediates received for the Innovative Mental Health Grant. As you might know, the intermediates received COVID dollars this summer, and that funding was a little more flexible than what you had gotten in the past. And my understanding, the governor is proposing to continue that model for the intermediates and make that funding permanent. And then the governor is also proposing to have specific program funding for level 4 programs statewide. The priorities that I've been working on for the intermediates, I noted the innovative mental health funding and the level 4 funding, but also we'll be working on some career and tech proposals. We've had a proposal the last several years. We've almost gotten it through the finish line the last 2 years, but for many reasons, just hasn't happened. The one to allow districts to collect extended time revenue for providing educational services in care and treatment programs. In the past, it's just been we've just had a bill for residential programs. This year, the bill is for residential programs as well as care and treatment programs. And then we are advancing a proposal to provide reimbursement to school districts that provide transportation to students who attend area learning center programming. And then this is kind of in the weeds regarding students who are awarded the states, kind of figuring out how some of that funding flows through. But the big items that I'm working on are the area learning center funding and the mental health grant and the level 4 funding. And then I would just add, one of the things that I'm constantly watching for the intermediates is whenever there's like specific school district funding, like student support personnel aid, or in the past we've seen mental health support aid. Often the intermediates or other cooperative school districts as well, get missed because funding is typically made on a per pupil basis, and that doesn't work for intermediates. A lot of the bills that have been introduced this year include a separate funding stream for cooperative school districts. And I was talking with the director of government relations at the department about the governor's budget and asking him some questions. And he said, don't worry, Valerie, for any of the proposals we have, we've made sure to add a formula for the cooperative, so you don't have to worry about that. So after 18 years of working with the intermediates, I don't have to worry about it as much as I used to. But so the information we received from the governor this week was just kind of the budget narrative. Now, the next step is the governor's budget recommendations and policy bills will be introduced. So that's where we really get the details of the governor's proposals. Any questions?
Yes. As you're working with us as intermediates and the superintendents, scheduling meetings with the board chairs of each of the committees. Just want to acknowledge Valerie and I were just met with Representative Joachim, and we have other meetings coming up as we share our platform in the intermediate. So thank you for that connection and continuing to schedule. I know it sometimes can be difficult. So thank you for that.
I forgot to add, there is a new senator from the Cottage Grove area who has a very personal experience with the intermediates. Her son has been in level 4 setting most of his, at least middle school and high school career. So I found hopefully a new champion for the intermediates over in the Minnesota Senate. I talked to her about a bill, and I said, first of all, do you know what intermediates are? And she said, absolutely. I know very intimately what intermediates are. So
that is lovely. Thank you so much, Valerie. Questions and comments from the board? Go ahead, Kim.
So I would just proudly make the comment that the chairs of the Senate Education Policy Committee and the House Education Policy Committee both represent Eden Prairie. So if we can help, I know them both well, so if we can help.
Good to know.
They're amazing and incredibly supportive of education. So
yes. Great. I'm sure Valerie will remember that. Shannon, go ahead.
I'm excited about this upcoming legislative session personally, but just wondering if you could give me a little more clarity around the, how, increase on pure pupil funding doesn't necessarily trickle down to intermediates. I ask this question all the time and I can never wrap my head around it. So, yeah.
So this, for the most part, the students that are served in intermediate school districts count as pupils in their resident districts. So intermediates, for the most part, don't have a per pupil count like regular school districts do. So like the safe school, if they have a formula based on per pupil, it doesn't generate very much revenue, so very much revenue for the intermediates. So there's always a different way they finagle it.
So my understanding then is that, so for example, in Hopkins, we would collect the ADM for our students. And then we pay intermediate school district fees to cover whatever services they're getting here. Is that correct? So it's like a layer.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I have that correct when I'm talking with my legislators and how so what you're proposing in all these bills would be to make sure that those calculations and the funding streams incorporate intermediate districts through dollars that are kind of like tied to specific programming and services.
Exactly. And I can send Superintendent Dowd an example of what that might look like so you can see how it's formulated.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I always try to, when I'm advocating and at the legislature, always try and make sure that I'm also talking about 287 as well and the needs of this district, because I know they're unique in particular. So it's helpful.
Go ahead, Michelle.
So, so happy to see you and you have good news. It's been many years where you had not such good news, as you know, as you recall. I just want to know, what do you think is the most effective way to reach a legislator on a particular bill, let's say the bus bill, to get the students or the district reimbursed for busing?
Yeah, it's email them directly. They all have, I mean, I will admit they're really getting inundated with emails right now. There's been a couple big bills that have been advancing at the legislature. So I think email right now is getting a little bit lost, but certainly send an email. If you have a personal relationship with the legislator, I would text them and talk to them about it. And we have through the company, my firm, we have some advocacy software. And when the time is right, I will be working with the 4 superintendents about making it easier for you to do advocacy, where you click a link and can send an email.
Great.
Any other comments or questions for Valerie? I don't see any.
I would just add my appreciation. You referenced that things are off to just a very rapid start. And so my empathy is with you and everybody else who is just like holding on, because things are moving so quickly and so fast. And we know you're doing a lot of work on our behalf and most importantly on our students' behalf at the Capitol. So thank you.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself while you're over there.
Good night.
Good night. So I received a request that we adjust the order of the agenda since Jim Eichten has arrived straight from another school board meeting, also presenting the audit. So we hear the audit prior to going to the instructional report so that he can hopefully get home at a reasonable hour this evening. And our appreciation to John and Ben for being willing to adjust accordingly. Are there any objections to just briefly, or not briefly, but adjusting these items so that we can do the audit first? Okay, with that, we will move to item 8.2.1, the presentation of our fiscal year 22 audit. Jim, please join us at the podium.
Chair, thank you. My name is Jim Eichen with MMKR CPAs. I'm here this evening to provide a presentation on the audit report for the year end June 30th, 2022. I first of all appreciate your flexibility with me this evening. I did we call it maybe a double header tonight, 2 school board meetings, and I also appreciate all of the appreciation for some of the delays that might have come with the audit, given some of my own challenges personally. With that, Wayne's going to, believe, throw on a PowerPoint. But first of all, I will state the purpose of me being here is the district is required on an annual basis to complete an annual financial statement. That particular financial statement is required to be submitted to the Office of the State Auditor, as well as the Minnesota Department of Education in the state of Minnesota. We're required, as part of that particular audit, to issue opinions, and that's really my role here with the district. Can you start it up for me, Wendy?
I think it needs to be put in slideshow mode.
I should be able to do that?
Yep.
You go down to the,
I think the issue is it's not in slideshow mode.
right. Oh, there you go. Well, I'll just continue. As part of the audit process, you're then required to go through a number of other opinions that we were required to file, which includes the internal controls and compliance reports that we issue, specifically related to financial reporting. We also complete your report or issue an opinion on your compliance with Minnesota laws and regulations. The state of Minnesota issues a guide for us to audit in terms of the audit of the rules that we audit and the particular statutes that we audit. Again, we don't audit every law or every procedure, just those on the list. My technology is almost ready to go. Now we got some.
We're regressing.
So I'll just kind of continue talking. So it is a requirement that these particular audits be complete by the Department of Education and the OSA by December 31st. And with the approval of the administration at the district, we did submit these documents to the state by the required timeframe. Members of the board, a subset met with the superintendent and members of administration to go through that particular report and vet that prior to approval by administration. So really the purpose for me being here this evening is to have the board accept that particular report. A couple of highlights in terms of the audit process this year. We, as a firm and all school districts, were required to implement a new accounting standard, GASB 87, on leases. And that particular standard had a pretty dramatic impact on financial reports. You're required to change a number of areas in terms of how you coded and how you recorded leases. Changed the accounting for one that was just more of a pay-as-you-go expense to one that was more dealt with financing those leases. Really, they're debt financings versus just kind of a pay-as-you-go element. School districts were also receiving a significant increase in the amount of federal awards this year. Stimulus-related grants came out to school districts at a very high level recently. We complete what's called a single audit of federal awards anytime the district receives $750,000 of federal money. And generally, that particular audit was pretty consistent, generally. From district to district, because those aids were very consistent. They were typically food service funds or title programs or special ed programs. But with the stimulus monies that came out, you had a lot of challenges, both internally at the district level, but as an auditing firm, getting up to speed with all the various compliance as it related to those grants. So we did complete a single audit of federal awards this year. It was in the area of the comprehensive literacy grant That was a grant we had audited before, so it was a little less complex potentially, at the district, at the intermediate district. But none the same, it is still a challenging area. I'll continue on. What do you still challenge? With the PowerPoint. So does everybody have my handouts? We can just
I
continue.
think we have a few people that don't have
Okay.
access to the digital, unfortunately.
Right. So I'll just continue on in my notes. We did issue in my audit findings, we did issue what's called an unmodified opinion on the particular financial statements that I was referencing, that particular financial statements. Oh, very nice.
I'm sorry to
You are
interrupt.
so sweet.
That's
You
okay.
are
So
so
here,
cute.
no, I'll just
No?
go back over there and I'll just share like that and you guys can do your thing.
Thank you. Can you see? Yeah. All right.
So we did issue what's called an unmodified opinion on that particular financial statement. That particular unmodified opinion is a clean opinion. It was the opinion you were looking for as part of, your particular audit process. That opinion didn't come with an emphasis of a matter. That particular matter related back to that implementation of GASB 87. That opinion wasn't necessarily modified by that, wasn't, a finding or anything. It was really just an emphasis of a matter. Hey, your report changed dramatically as a result of this implementation. You should be aware of that if you read through my audit report. So I go through my other audit opinions. We did not have any findings to report in the internal controls, of the district, the financial internal controls. We did not have any findings to report in the governmental auditing standards that we follow and complete. I mentioned that single audit of federal awards. There were no findings to report, in that area. And then lastly, we issued that legal compliance audit in regard to compliance with laws and regulations. And again, we did not have any findings to report. So that is an extremely great result, obviously, to have no findings and to have no compliance exceptions, is I wouldn't say it's unique, but it's not always the case. And so the district does an exceptional job in general and has always done that in compliance. So I'm going to flip to my next graph, which looks like it's based on the board. Page 6 of my report, which I think is the statewide fund balances report. So the statewide fund balance graphical presentation on page 6 of my report talks a little bit about, or starts to get into the second part of the audit. The second part of an audit is the financial results. Obviously, the first part you did exceptionally well at. The second part is really the financial results. I think I'm on the fourth one down. If you just want to, there we go. One more before it. One before
Now it's
it.
on the screen.
Is that you, Whitney? There we go. There we go. Beautiful. So this particular graph shows the statewide fund balances. What that is there's generally a widely known calculation on fund balances as a percentage of expenditures. Your board actually uses it. Most boards use it to guide where your equity position is in a fund balance perspective. This particular graph actually takes all of the districts in the whole entire state, adds them up, those fund balances, and compares to all the spending statewide. And the reason I put that up there, that blue, I guess it's blue, close enough. You can see that statewide fund balances were very flat for quite a while. You can see almost from 15 to 2019 that fund balances were at about 20% of operations. And once the pandemic hit, you can see in 2020 and 2021, fund balances actually increased statewide. A little counterintuitive, right? You would think we get into a pandemic and we as school districts might have been fiscally challenged by that. Well, actually, in the financial statements perspective, we were not. Part of that had to do with the stimulus funds. The stimulus money that came out to school district assisted us as a group or as a whole to help financially. There was a lot of a switch to remote learning, and with remote learning, actually costs were less. It might not be the best in terms of educationally, but when in terms of financially, it actually created less costs. You had a lot of supply chain issues with school districts. People projected they were going to spend money in a particular manner, and they just couldn't. So that is really the results kind of globally in terms of the fund balance perspective. The green line is actually the district's trends, and I'm going to get into a little bit more specifics later, so I won't get into too much on this, but the highlight to me is just how consistent it is. You can go a long ways back and see that there's a very stable fund balance environment at the district, and really reflected by that particular green line that shows some real good trends in fund balance. So moving to the next graph, we do get into then the general fund specific information. Oh, great. I'll just continue. I can see what you're looking at anyway. So that general fund financial position of that particular graph does show the trend lines in general fund cash and general fund balance. And at the end of the year, the district for June 30th, 2020 saw a decrease in fund balance of roughly 1.2 million. That compared to a budget decrease of about 3 million. So you did do better than you had budgeted, but real close, in terms of overall perspective. The net change in fund balance difference was in multiple accounts. You have many multiple types of funds and activities at the district. 3 of them in terms of the district-wide activity, the special education area, as well as the academic area, all did better than projected. So I think the next graph shows, I think, maybe not. I keep losing our touch. So I mentioned that fund balance policy. The district has oh, there we go. This general fund financial position in this particular graph shows all of the fund balances of the district in categories. So you can see the fund balance did increase this past year, decreased by about 1.2 million. This shows all of the various categories of fund balance. And fund balance has categories because of restrictions at the state level. You have many categories of funding that you're getting that are restricted in use, and thus you have to restrict those fund balances. The district also has a number of assigned fund balances, meaning internally they decide we're going to set those monies aside for particular pieces. 2 that stand out to me is in the middle of that page. The first one is the assigned for tuition adjustments. This district in particular has a significant portion of your activities in special education tuition. And that particular aid category or funding mechanism is very volatile and can go up and down depending on a lot of variables. So the district at the end of the year estimates what those funding levels will be, and the MDE actually adjusts it the following fiscal year. So the district kind of sets aside some fund balance in case of adjustment, in case of maybe a contingency, if you will, if some of the adjustments of the estimates doesn't come out right. The second one that stands out to me is the assigned for severance. That is really an amount that's set aside to assist with long-term obligations. You're really doing something as a district that you don't necessarily have to do, but understanding that, hey, we're going to set money aside for these long-term severance obligations that we have. The bottom of that particular page, you see the unassigned general fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. That particular number is probably the most important number of all of the numbers I'm throwing out to you today. The district does have a fund balance policy. That particular fund balance policy endeavors the district to maintain an unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures of at least 6 to 8%. So the board has adopted that policy, and at the end of 2022, you see that it's 8.5%. Certainly within the range and a little bit above that range. Why that's important as a board? That's a starting point for you for the end of the year. Hey, we're above our fund balance policy. We're in a good position financially. And as we look at future numbers and make future decisions, we know we're in a good spot as it relates to that policy. And that's really the result of it. So the next graph does support the previous graph. The question might be asked, well, why do we need fund balance? Why do we need equity position? Well, this pretty much tells you why. The This is a graph of the last 3 years of general fund cash flow, showing the balance at the end of every month. And you can see there's a very big swing in cash flow throughout the year. And ultimately, it's very consistent. It doesn't really change a whole lot. Well, you can see by that you need fund balance. You need a cash position to be able to cash flow your district. And that's the 8.5% or the 6 to 8% in your fund balance policy. That's why you have it. So the next graph, I think, there we go. I do reflect and put into this report some discussion around different accounts. And I put them up here, and I think there's 3 of them. The first one is the special education account. This includes mostly all the special education activities. I mentioned that this particular account did complete the year better than budget, about 900,000 in this case. Part of the reason I reflect on this is, as a board, you are making decisions on a constant basis based on what? A budget, right? And as an auditor, I look to see, hey, did that budget hold true? Did the financial results of the district at the end of the day hold true to that budget? And that's important as a board. You want to know that, oh yeah, at the end of the year, we met that budget expectation because we were making decisions all year on that. And really, when you look at it at the end of the year, that was met, certainly was met, very close to expectations. And if it wasn't, it was very clear to administration what that was, why that happened. I mean, it's generally the case globally within school districts, but not always. So to know you have good administration, people that can put information in front of you and the audit can hold true is really important. And I'm here to say that it is the case, and it has been for any number of years. So when you look at that graph, kind of a couple of things stood out to me. You did have higher than projected revenues in your care and treatment program, but you had, and then you had less than budgeted expenditures in salaries, purchase services, and supplies, and one in particular due to open positions. That particular element has been heard. I probably said that at every board meeting that I've been at for the last month. It's just a challenge, especially in the special education area, to find individuals. The next graph shows, I believe it's going to be the the career and tech account. This particular fund met budget very closely. So a very small portion of the district's budget. So I'll move on to the next one, which I believe is the academic education account. A little cut off there, but it's about a $10 million account. This one finished about 600,000 above expectations. There was an increase in this particular account in students enrolled in the Northern OnStar online program, which was a highlight of that particular program. Expenditures here were again lower than budget, but some of that had to do with some reclassifications and some reductions in some of the positions in this particular area. But overall, again, very close to budget. And I think the last one, maybe not the last graph, we do also reflected on the district-wide account. And again, the district-wide account was about 600,000 above expectations. Here you saw expenditures again under budget in areas like purchase services, capital expenditures, supplies, much of which related back to the pandemic, supply chain shortages. Still to this day, even though you might think it's over, it's still we're still dealing with that at some level. So I think the last graph I have up there, there we go, is a government-wide financial statement. And this particular financial statement is nothing that you see every day as a board. It is not on a fund-based perspective. It's on a government as a whole. And the reason I put it up there really is just to say one thing. Hey, when you look at that particular presentation, it shows that the district as a whole improved its financial position by almost $8 million, $7.7 million of improvement as a whole financially. And that's a plus. As an auditor, I look at that and go, yeah, district's doing well. Good things are happening at the district in terms of financial results, but also just overall funding on a long-term perspective. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Again, I did mention that we did have a clean opinion on that district financial statement. We implemented that GASB on leases, which was an important element of this year's audit. We had that single audit of federal awards, which had no findings, which I can't say that I've been to most districts this year and had no findings, so that's exceptional. No overall findings to report, which is great. And then very stable financial position. That one graph really highlights how well the district does financially in keeping its position stable. And lastly, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the audit here is very efficient, very effective, always finding the data that we need on an everyday basis and really goes very smoothly from that standpoint. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you, Jim. And I would just like to, frame this particular slide because it is sparkling. It would be hard to imagine a better summary, and obviously want to appreciate both May Hawkins and Gloria Wilder, who is with us online, and their entire team for the work that goes into making this summary slide possible. And thanks to you and your team as well. So know that we will be asked as an action item to accept the FY22 audit report when we're done with comments and questions. So just want to preview that we will be coming to that action item shortly. Are there any comments or questions? And
I just want to say thank you, Jim, and also Emco Crystal, that May and Gloria and team. It's good to see you again. I feel like it's like Groundhog Day is next week, but you probably feel like that.
We saw each other a
that
couple
every day
days
We
ago.
saw each other less
Yeah.
than 48 hours ago. I'll say the same thing I said then, which was, thank you, great news, a clean opinion, thank you, great. No surprises, board date surprises, and there were no surprises here, so that's a communication from our team throughout the year that means that we don't get surprises when we see our audit. And worth the wait, so thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
No, we have to
Oh,
stop
Michelle.
meeting like this.
Sorry?
Stop meeting like this.
Well, that's true.
This
Let's
is
hope it's
bad.
always on this terms. Good results, right?
It has,
Yeah.
it's wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'm looking for hands. I don't see any. With that, we could entertain a motion to accept the FY22 audit report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Ann Casey and a second by Ruthie Dallas. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the audit report is approved. Thank you so much, Jim. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we are going to take one step back in our agenda and move to our instructional report, which is presentation of the annual World's Best Workforce Report. And we are going to invite Ben McGrath, our Executive Director of Leadership and Learning, and Dr. John Voss, our Director of Teaching and Learning, who are going to give the presentation this evening. And again, at the end of this, we will be asked to approve the World's Best Workforce Plan.
Good evening, and thank you, Board Chair Brockie, members of the board, Superintendent Dowd. I'm going to immediately turn it over to Dr. John Voss, our Director of Teaching and Learning. He leads this work in our district and does a tremendous job with it. So I will turn it over to John.
Thank you, Ben, and Chair Brockie, Superintendent Dowd. As an overview, there are two parts to this. There's the report on the previous year, FY22, that we submit to MDE, and then the plan for this year, FY23. As you may notice, our World's Best Workforce Report differs from others due to the nature of our district, our relationship with our members and the students that we serve. MDE requires data in a number of areas, which, while instructive, are not always as directly applicable for our student populations. Our students are referred specifically to address needs that often have disrupted their learning, and our goal is to help them transition back to their home district and meet their personal aspirational goals. So our data is impacted by mobility, by having different students in the spring than in the fall, and by having no real large cohort of students who are the same age and progress at the same rate. We focus more intently on individual growth and other goals within our students' individual education plans, and these are reported to our member districts through the IEP process and by overall program area. So At the same time, we continue to define individual growth for students in the context of providing a common academic learning environment at the most appropriate level. And then following the disruptions of the last 2 or 3 years from the pandemic and some other events, our students are faced with more sizable learning gaps, in addition to more acute trauma and mental health challenges. Our goals for student learning then are part of a larger effort to help our students, families, and staff reconstruct routines, social emotional connections, and establish their future goals that will provide purpose and meaning to their professional and academic lives. So in many ways, this snapshot tells more about our context than the work that we do and the achievements that we make with our students, as we saw even earlier tonight. Those things don't show up in the kind of world's best workforce data that the state asks for. And also the established norms for many of the assessments and the data points that we use as a state and across the board are based on and designed for traditional populations and learning timelines, which is a little bit different than how we operate. So just as the context for how this may look compared to in other situations. If we start with the last item that's listed in the board book there, that's our FY22 summary. It does reflect, like I said, some of the disruptions of the last 2 years and the limited range of district-wide data that we've had as a result. So for instance, in terms of kindergarten readiness, we have always had a very small number of kindergarten students, and we rely on our member district referral process to identify the readiness needs that they have and how they are coming into our programs. For third grade achievement, we also have a very small number of students in grades 1 and 2. For instance, the previous year, we only had 2 students who had fall to spring growth information. So the data reflects, again, the reality that we're dealing with. Similarly, with closing achievement gaps, we had only 28 students who completed fall to spring testing. So the results are skewed in favor of those who were able to test. And while some made significant progress, it's a small sample size that we're drawing from. With college and career readiness, we have fewer students who take the ACT, and in the past couple of years, less opportunities to focus on preparing for that during the school year. On the other hand, our graduation rates bounced back from a dip in 2018 and 2019 over the last couple of years. Some of those differences are based on where students complete their final credits. In a lot of cases, if they return to their home district for their final term or they register in another program of the summer, that's where they're counted for the grad rate. So again, those shifts are reflected in that. So that's the summary report that we provide to MDE for last year. If we then move up to the FY23 plan, as we set specific goals for this school year, we saw that we needed to reestablish our primary outcomes for mental health and literacy, and a lot of the foundational strategies that support that continuing growth in those areas. So our plan for FY23 continues some of the basic indicators required by the state, for instance, in kindergarten readiness, third grade reading. But our achievement gap goal is based more on individual growth and the percent of students who we expect and are planning to help reach their reading growth or catch-up goal. So we're establishing baseline data this year, reflecting this renewed emphasis on assessment and core instruction. We'll be providing an update on our progress next month, a little more realistically attuned to our students with a more comprehensive look at our efforts in assessment cycles, core literacy instruction, and evidence-based practices. And as also has been mentioned, this year we're beginning our process to develop a new strategic plan for 2024 through 29. And from the sunset of our previous plan in 2020, we've been guided by our strategic priorities. And those priorities of racial equity, trauma responsive and healing centered practices, evidence-based instruction, and employee well-being keep student outcomes at the center and guide our roadmap to success. So with that in mind, that's the plan for FY23 that we are bringing forward to have approved as our state report. there's any questions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the context that you helped provide, which is it's difficult for our district to fit into these very prescribed categories that the state, I think understandably wants all districts to use.
Right.
But we also illustrate the challenges of how those don't always work for all of our kids.
Sure.
So it's important information and it's important for us to know where we are and to also know the ways in which we don't neatly fit into these categories. So I just wanted to start by appreciating you for that. Comments or questions for John? Yes, Kim.
So this may be a question you can't answer, but I thought I had heard along the way that the state was considering dispensing with the world's best workforce program, statute, so forth.
That could be, it's still in effect and it was
Yeah.
still required this year. And so we do it.
Okay.
It
And
was somewhat suspended or
that may be what I'm
paused
thinking
over
of.
the last couple of years in
Okay.
terms of what they specifically expected.
Yeah.
But it's still out there.
And so, given the fact that we don't fit into the box, how do you think about goal setting for this? And I mean, do you view it as something you have to do?
Yeah, it's a fascinating challenge. In fact, that's why I said next month, we're going to talk about the progress we've made this year on our literacy goals, which are specifically designed to meet different student populations,
Yeah.
and some of the curriculum that we've adopted and some of the instructional strategies, and then all the work with mental health and other student supports that go into that. So stay tuned.
All right,
and We'll
thanks.
say more about it, but there are a lot of different ways we have to look at things and
Yeah.
different ways that we approach how we present that too, which we're always trying to figure out good ways to do.
Thanks.
We can say a lot about individual students. Rolling it up from there is a fun thing to try to.
Yeah, we're working with ends of one.
Okay. Yeah,
You know, you're looking
Right.
at individual students.
exactly.
Yeah.
Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you for the report and summarizing, and it's fresh in my mind of how Hopkins was doing it, because I just heard, we just got ours on Tuesday. So I appreciate all the work that goes into this. I know it's a lot and very layered. And I'm wondering, and maybe not a question you can ask right now, answer right now, how are we assessing our students and their progress toward these goals? I guess I'm wondering about the data that's feeding in. Looking more, and in particular, I think in 287 at our students as not simply a test score or even a classroom assessment, but a holistic view of, I think we got a great example of that here today, that there's a student who's wildly successful and ironically would not be seen as a success for the world's best workforce report, even though the reason he's a success is he's working. So I think that I'm wondering how we can creatively in 287, collect the right data in order to be meeting these standards.
It's an ongoing conversation, and a few years ago with our transition programs, we specifically looked at all of the standards that they had for student success and revamped how they approached what they were looking at with data. And I think that taught us a lot about how to do that at all levels. And then we had to wade through a couple of years of new challenges before we could kind of get back to what does that mean. We do still use assessments for literacy and math. We have some ways to look at other factors, and we bring those together. We have curriculum-based measures incorporated in a lot of what we do. And then finding those student goals that are reflected throughout their IEPs and some of their other post-secondary career planning and college planning, I think is what we begin to put into the picture that can bring out some of the things that we see from students and how how they're meeting their future goals. So that's kind of a general way of looking at it. I think we'll try to bring some examples in when we look at what we're doing, how that's playing out this year, and how we're trying to roll that up then to talk about what are the ways we can talk about larger levels of achievement across the board.
Thank you.
More to come, I guess,
Yeah.
is still the.
Heather, go ahead. Yeah, so I guess I'm wondering about kind of on the same vein, for our student populations, that there isn't an expectation of, like medically, there isn't an expectation that they achieve certain achievements, basically, depending on whatever their disabilities are. I know that a lot of our students have profound disabilities and have been, their families have been told, you know, we don't expect this child to achieve, you know, more than this grade level of intellect. And for sometimes it's, you know, 18 months old because of whatever severe disability they have. But we're still obligated to educate them and provide them an enriching environment. And there will be small wins that we see, but aren't quantifiable by the world's best workforce, right? So how are those specific students accounted for in this when there is no real probability of them having independence once they exit the school system?
As far as the world's best workforce goes, report goes, there's not really a way to pull that in under the guidelines that they have, and that's why we have our own way of doing that. We use a curriculum called Unique Learning Systems for what we our tier 3 students. And there are a lot of different measures within that that are very individual based and are based on and reflect specific skills. And as our reporting and data collection within that has improved, we've been able to pull out more of the kind of reporting on which skills are we're seeing growth in, which ones do we need to put more attention towards. And so that's where we're looking at, okay, now we've got all of this individual information. What does that mean on a larger scale?
Right.
And that's where the fun part comes in. I have to visualize data completely differently.
Yeah.
A true director of teaching and learning, saying that's where the fun part comes. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I don't see any, so thank you so much for that report. With that, we could entertain a motion to approve the World's Best Workforce Plan for FY23 as presented.
Second.
Right, we have a motion by Michelle Kunz and a second by Heather Douglas. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the motion is approved. Thank you. We will go back to our business services and labor relations report for item 8.2.2, approval of the routine monthly finance report, which May Hawkins, our Executive Director of Business Services, is here to present.
I get to cross off a sentence like the one where I introduced myself. Here before me. So this is the December 2022 monthly report. Good evening, board chair and board members. As this is the first financial report of the calendar year, I'm going to provide a little background information about 287 financial reporting. Our fiscal year starts on July 1 and ends on June 30th. Each month, the board receives a financial report that contains the following information. I'm going to apologize because I'm going to read the list. You will receive a year-to-date comparison of actual revenues to budget with a graph, a year-to-date comparison of actual expenditures to budget with a graph, a cash report showing claims, payroll, receipts, and investments, an investments report, and with the issuance of our long-term facilities bond, you will also receive a long-term facilities bond report. You'll receive a cash and investments position information with a graph, an electronic record of electronic transfers both in and out. You'll receive ADM graphs comparing actual ADMs to the plan for each instructional program area and a monthly donations report. In addition to the above, the monthly check register is sent to the board treasurer prior to the board meetings. These reports are presented in two different formats, as you've seen both of them on your agenda today. So for each quarter end, the monthly report is given as a formal report, which we'll get tonight for the December report. So for December September, December, March, and June reports, there'll be a formal report. All other months are included on your consent agenda. If at any time there is unexpected anomaly in a report that would be on the consent agenda, I will pull it and it will become a formal report. So with that, we'll do the December end of second quarter, December 2022 report. So all months, all amounts I'm including in my report tonight exclude funds 6 and 11, which are the district construction funds. This is done so that we have an apples to apples comparison across years. Those amounts with those funds are included on your reports to the far right, so that you have full information. But when I'm doing a comparison to prior years, I'm going to compare it to the column that doesn't have construction, right? Because construction can make a year very different from another year. Okay. So revenues were 47.6% of budget, which compared to 49.4% last year and 50.7% the year before. So this reflects that revenues are below the prior 2 years. Expenditures are at 37.6% of budget. That compares to 38.3% for each of the last 2 years. So expenditures are also lower than the last 2 years. Cash is between the last 2 year December balances. Investments totaled $29,054,145 and earned interest and dividends of $73,516 in December. The long-term facilities maintenance bond proceeds were invested in November when they were received. $45,645.18 of the proceeds were spent in December, mostly on closing costs related to the bond. And it earned interest of $687.30. Moving on to our student ADM report. The ALC ADMs were at 234.99, which is 12 ADM above budget. I'm going to say that with joy in my voice. And 7 ADM above the prior year. NSO ADMs totaled 395.46. I'm making a little note here that NSO is a program where most of our ADMs are recorded at a quarter or a semester end. So our semester ends here. Oh, it ended today. It ended today, right? So then we'll see as students achieve credits, then they get accounted as an ADM. So it's a little different program, and you'll find out more about that as we go here. Career and Tech Pathways ADMs were 59.88, which is 17 below budget and 19 ADMs below last year. Special Ed ADMs were at 455.8, which is 2.2 ADMs under budget and 26 above last year. Care and Treatment ADMs were totaled 110.56. That's 18.7 below what we had planned for and 19.7 below last year. Donations for the month of December were $20, which was a check for SEC Aftercare and Wellness. Does the board have any questions before they approve the December report?
Thank you, May. Are there any questions or comments?
I just
Go ahead,
wanted
Ann.
to say to our new board members, when I said there's no surprises in the audit, this is why. Great communication like this throughout the year. And so this is exactly why we don't have surprises at the audit. So thank you very much, May.
Yes, thank you for that comment. I could not agree more.
Yeah.
All right, I don't see any other questions or comments. With that, we could entertain a motion to approve the routine monthly finance report as presented. We have a motion by Ruthie Dallas and a second by Heather Douglas. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the motion is approved. Thank you so much. Okay, we move into the board business section of our agenda. Next up is a closed session, strategy for local 284 negotiations. As people no doubt know, the school board may hold a closed meeting to consider strategy for labor negotiations under Minnesota statute 13D.03. So at this time, we could entertain a motion to close the meeting for negotiation.
So moved.
We have a motion by Shannon Andreessen and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. At 8:10, we will take a brief recess, we close the room and move into closed session. know when we're ready. Thank you for stopping me.
My daughter's doing a news story tonight on, is your phone listening to you?
Oh,
The answer is yes.
No,
Yeah, no.
not if you have Irish Siri.
Thank you so much. All right, we are back in public meeting. It is 8:43 PM. Coming out of our closed session to discuss strategy for Local 284 negotiations, we will entertain a motion to approve the agreement with Local 284 for the 2022-2024 years. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Ann Casey and a second by Ruthie Dallas. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. The motion is approved, and just want to extend our deepest gratitude to Local 284 and their team, and to our team on the district negotiation side of things in coming up with this agreement that I think we all feel good about and are so happy that we were able to formally approve this evening. With that, we will continue the board business section of the agenda. The next item is 9.3.2, which is an AMSD report. For our new board members, this is a standing item on the agenda where we share anything specifically related to AMSD. Coincidentally, I am the chair of AMSD right now, so I often just say, here's what we're doing. If you're interested, please join us. So with that, the next full board of directors meeting for AMSD is next Friday. And the main topic of discussion will be a presentation of the governor's budget by staff from the Department of Education. So if you're interested in really getting into the weeds and hearing about the governor's budget, that would be a great meeting to attend. And there are both virtual and in-person options. So feel free to let me know if you would like the link and the details about that meeting. The district news section of the agenda is also always there, where there will be a variety of calendars. They include our upcoming meetings, events that are scheduled for the district. And then the one thing I wanted to specifically call attention to is our get on the bus and board breakfast with Local 2209 schedules, just so especially again, our newer board members know what that is and the upcoming events. So Get on the Bus is an event that we do several times a year where board members and guests, we absolutely encourage board members to invite guests from your home district, visit 287 programs, and are able to be on site, talk with our staff, meet our students, get tours of our facilities. And there are 2 remaining events this school year. So wanted to note those for your calendars. The first is coming up quite soon. It's Tuesday, February 7th. And it is a visit to the West Education Center and Hennepin Tech Pathways programs. We literally do get on a bus. It meets here at the district office and departs at 8:30 a.m. The second, still this school year, is Tuesday, April 11th. Also departing from here at 8:30 a.m. to the South Education Center, which is in Richfield. We ask that you let Juanine know if you are able to attend, and especially if you are going to bring somebody along with you, or if for whatever reason you are going to meet at the site instead of taking the bus. So those are the 2 upcoming Get on the Bus schedules.
How long do they usually take?
Thank you for asking that. So we typically get to the site and begin, 9:15 and try to wrap up by about 11 a.m.
Okay, so
is
it's
the
like an
standard.
all morning kind of thing.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yep. The breakfast with Local 2209 is a standing tradition in this district where board members and members of our Education Minnesota Union come together just to talk about what's happening, what's on people's minds, what are the conversations taking place. So it's very casual. We have a virtual option for that. So you can come be here in person in the district office, or you can join online. These meetings are at 7:30 because obviously it's the beginning of the workday for our staff. And there are 2 of those left this school year as well, Tuesday, February 21st and Tuesday, April 25th. So again, we ask that you let Juanine know if you plan to attend, just so we make sure you have the information. And as board chair, I always plan to attend unless something gets in the way or I'm not able to be there. But we usually have a small number of board members who are present. Any questions or comments about the calendar mouthful that I just released? Okay, and all of this is in the board packet as well. I just know that it's not easily accessible to everybody at this moment, so especially wanted to call attention to those items. The other thing that is not yet on the calendar, but we are going to be working towards scheduling is some board development time. Because as I mentioned, we are in our superintendent's first year. We are a new board working together. We are in the midst of a strategic planning process. Thought that it would be a very worthy time investment for us to come together and talk about how do we work together as a board and with the superintendent, and for us to be able to participate in the strategic planning process in that way. So we will be looking, now that we know who our board is for this year, and we are all here, with the exception of Michael, who sends his regrets, to get that on the calendar. So Waneen will be supporting scheduling, so look for information from her so that we can get that moving. Obviously, it's very challenging to schedule among 11 busy human beings, but we will do our best. Okay, the last item on every agenda is called Once Around the Table. And that is time for board members to share with one another information, whether it's from your member district, things that you're sort of thinking about that are related to 287's work. It could also be a time to raise topics for future meetings so that we can have them on our radar and determine how to get them on an agenda down the road. So we are at that time. Is there anything that board members would like to share with each other this evening? Shannon, go ahead.
I first wanted to welcome our newest board members. It's really exciting to get to know you and your districts through your lens. And I also wanted to extend an invitation to you. This is part of my update of what's going on in Hopkins. We just had our legislative breakfast on Friday. The excitement and energy was palpable. Our legislators are thrilled to be able to be working on the business of education, finally getting through bills that are essential to all of us to build our future. And our students who are members of the Legislative Action Coalition created 4 videos for us around advocacy around our top priorities. One of them is universal school meals, mental health, community schools, which I know Robbinsdale has been championing for quite some time, and early childhood, streamlining and increasing funding for early childhood. So if you go to our YouTube or Facebook page, Twitter, those are being posted, and legislators are sharing them to increase advocacy around those key priorities. So Hopkins Legislative Action Coalition, you can share them out. And we'll also be posting ways to be active and advocate. And we'll be going to the Capitol this year, I think with the AMSD. Great. So, yeah, it's an exciting time.
I guess I'll share that I was at the Capitol yesterday and I testified in the Senate on behalf of AMSD and MSBA and mostly myself and the civics requirement bill, both in support of the bill and asking for some consideration to be given to the specific requirements that are in the bill. Namely, with my concerns were that it was going to limit some of our high school, our upperclassmen's options when they got to senior year in particular, and then it would essentially force districts not to be able to offer civics to 9th graders, which I think is actually really important. So there's a companion bill in the House that has slightly different language. I think I'm going to be, they invited me. Apparently I did a good enough job. They invited me back to testify again on the House side. So I think I'll be doing that. If anyone's interested, or if your district has any input, please feel free to let me know.
And where could we find more information about the specifics about that bill?
I can tell you the bill number. Is that,
Okay,
would
yeah,
you like that?
I'd be curious.
Yeah, I'll find it. One moment.
But to be clear, you were testifying against
I
or,
hate to say like, yeah, I mean, I guess because I was testifying against it in its current form.
okay,
I very much agree with the idea of the bill.
Sure.
It was just the devil is in the details.
Mhm.
So
okay,
that would be.
I'd be interested to
Okay.
read up on that.
Yeah.
The one thing that I was going to share is that the candidates for Minnesota Teacher of the Year were announced, I think, yesterday. I saw the release today, and I scrolled through it as I always do to see who's on it. And Beth Kowski from the South Education Center is one of the candidates for Minnesota Teacher of the Year. So just wanted to recognize one of our intermediate District 287 staff who does really beautiful work at South Education Center for being named a candidate. So obviously, congratulations to Beth and really, really support her. Any final items? Superintendent Dowd, is there anything that you would like to share before we officially adjourn?
The only thing I would say is at our next board meeting, I'm going to give you an update on the strategic planning process. And this whole team is going to be up very early because we have a professional development day tomorrow. And we are leading, they're leading a very large engagement with our staff and a World Cafe experience. So I'm excited to share with you what we've been doing and how we're connecting with community and staff and students around the strategic plan. So it's kind of been hard and busy and fun. Right, team?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Best of luck tomorrow for a big day and an early morning after being here with us until 9 o'clock tonight. And yes, with that, our next school board meeting is the evening of Thursday, February 9th. So look forward to seeing everybody there. Is there a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, Heather, I missed your hand. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I already mentioned this, we're gonna be going into a superintendent search in our home district. So there might be a couple of meetings that I will not be able to attend because I know we're kind of pushing this along pretty quickly. So in February.
It eats up.
I'll be at the
a lot of
next
your
one, but I think there's a second one in February that I might not be able to make it to.
Okay, thank you. And we'll stay in touch, obviously, and support you in your efforts.
Again, it's like my third search, so.
That's rough.
Hey, so with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Second. We have a motion by Sarah Johansson and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, and we are adjourned at 8:56 PM. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, actually.
Yeah, that'll save me time.
Yeah. Good luck with yours. We'll talk tomorrow. Whatever you're done.
Good one.
Yeah, I know.
I have to send it back.
Oh, good.
Oh, so much paperwork.